Have you ever wondered how it all began? Where did we come from? And why are we here? The book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, is not just an ancient account, but the very narrative of our existence. Imagine a world where God speaks, and reality takes shape, where dust becomes life, and a rib turns into companionship, a world where temptation alters the destiny of all humanity. What mysteries lie behind the Tower of Babel? What secrets does Noah's Ark hold from the first light? To Joseph's tears in Egypt, Genesis is an epic journey of faith, betrayal, love, and redemption. It is the drama of imperfect families, chosen for perfect purposes. Join us today on this journey through time, where we will discover how a small people became the seed of a blessing for all nations, where impossible promises turned into tangible miracles. This is the story of our beginnings, the story that explains who we are and where we are going. Welcome to Genesis, the book of beginnings. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the face of the deep, but the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was. Light. He saw that the light was good, and separated it from the darkness, calling the light day, and the darkness night. This was the first day of creation. On the second day, God made the firmament, separating the waters below from the waters above. On the third day, he gathered the waters together, allowing dry land to appear, which he called earth, and the waters he called seas. He also caused vegetation to sprout from the land, seed-bearing plants and fruit trees. On the fourth day, he created the sun to govern the day, and the moon to govern the night, along with the stars to serve as signs for seasons, days, and years. On the fifth day, God created the great sea creatures, all living beings that swim in the waters, and every bird that flies in the sky. He blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." On the sixth day, God created land, animals according to their kinds. And finally he said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, all the earth, and every creeping thing that moves on the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female he created them. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that moves on the earth." Then he said, "See, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food." God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. He planted a garden in Eden in the east and placed the man he had formed there. He caused every tree that is pleasing to the eye and good for food to grow from the ground, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God placed man in the garden to work it and take care of it, commanding him, "You may eat freely from every tree in the garden, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you must not eat, for in the day that you eat from it, you will surely die." Seeing that it was not good for man to be alone, God caused a deep sleep to fall upon him. He took one of his ribs and fashioned it into a woman. Presenting her to the man, Adam exclaimed, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." The man and his wife were both naked, yet they felt no shame. On the seventh day God had finished all his work and rested. He blessed the seventh day and made it holy, for on it he rested from all the work of creation. Now the serpent, more cunning than any beast of the field, approached the woman and questioned God's command. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden"? Eve replied that they could eat from any tree except the one in the middle of the field, garden, about which God had said, You must not eat from it, nor touch it, or you will die." The serpent contradicted God's word, "You will die." The serpent contradicted God's word, "You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Seduced by the fruit's appearance desirable for gaining wisdom, Eve took and ate it. She also gave some to Adam, who was with her, and he ate. Immediately their eyes were open, and they realized they were naked. They sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. When they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, they hid among the trees. God called to the man, "Where are you?" Adam replied, "I heard your voice in the garden, And I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. God asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat?" Eat from Adam. Tried to shift the blame the woman you gave me. She gave me the fruit and I ate. The woman also justified herself. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Then God pronounced the consequences of this act of disobedience to the serpent. He said, "Cursed are you above all livestock and wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, but between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." This is the first promise of redemption. In the bib, lay to the woman, God said, "I will greatly increase your pain in childbirth with painful labor. You will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." To the man he declared, "Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field by the sweat of your brow. You will eat your food until you return to the ground, for from it you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you will return." Adam named his wife Eve, which means life, because she would become the mother of all the living. God made garments of skin for Adam and Eve and clothed them, demonstrating his mercy even in the midst of judgment, to prevent them from eating from the tree of life and living forever. God expelled them from the Garden of Eden. He placed cherubim to the east of the garden and a flaming sword that turned in every direction to guard the way to the tree of life outside the garden. Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. Later she gave birth to Cain. Later she gave birth to Abel. Abel became a shepherd while Cain was a farmer. Over time, both brought offerings to the Lord. Cain from the fruit of the ground, and Abel from the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but he did not accept Cain and his offering. Cain was very angry, and his face fell. The Lord asked him, "Why are you angry? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it, consumed by jealousy." Cain spoke with Abel, and when they were in the field, he attacked and killed his brother. When the Lord asked Cain where Abel was, he defiantly replied, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" God, who sees all, said, "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries, oh, you to me from the ground." God cursed Cain when he tilled the ground. It would no longer yield its strength to him, and he would become a restless wanderer on the earth. Fearing for his life, Cain received a mark of divine protection and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain's lineage contributed to civilization. Enoch, Cain's son, had a city built in his name. Jubal became the father of those who play the harp and flute. Tubal-Cain became a craftsman in bronze and iron. However, this lineage drifted away from God. Adam and Eve had another son, Seth, as a replacement for Abel. Seth's lineage preserved faith in the true God. Seth's son, Enosh, marked the time when people began to call on the name of the Lord. Seth's genealogy continued. Enos fathered Kenan, who fathered Mahalalel, who fathered Jared, who fathered Enoch. Enoch walked with God, and at 365 years old, he was no more, because God took him without experiencing death. Enoch fathered Methuselah, who lived 916 years, the longest 916 years, the longest lifespan recorded in the Bible. Methuselah fathered Lamech, and Lamech fathered Noah, whose name means rest, for his father said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands, caused by the ground." The Lord has cursed as mankind multiplied. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and took them as wives. In those days there were Nephilim, giants on the earth. Human wickedness increased, and every thought of man's heart was continually evil. God regretted creating humanity and decided to destroy it. However, Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord, for he was a righteous and blameless man in his generation. Noah walked with God and had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was corrupt and filled with violence. God said to Noah, "The end of all flesh has come before me. Because the earth is filled with violence, I will destroy them along with the earth." God instructed Noah to build an ark of gopher wood with compartments coated inside and out with pitch. The ark would be 300 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high, approximately 450 x 7545, or 50-43, or 450, or 43 m 450 x 40 x 40 x. established his covenant with Noah, he, his family, and pairs of animals would enter the ark for preservation. Noah obeyed all of God's commands when Noah was 600 years old. On the 17th day of the second month, the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. Rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. That same day Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives entered the ark, along with pairs of every kind of animal, and the Lord shut the door of the ark. The waters rose, and lifted the ark above the earth. They prevailed greatly, covering even the highest mountains. Every living creature perished, birds, livestock, wild animals, crawling creatures, and all mankind only. Noah, and those with him in the ark, survived. The waters covered the earth for 150 days. Then God remembered Noah and all the creatures in the ark. He sent a wind over the earth, closed the springs of the deep and the windows of heaven, and the high waters began to recede. In the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. By the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the ark's window and sent out a raven, which kept flying back and forth until the waters dried up. Then he sent a dove, but it returned, finding no place to rest after 7 days. He sent the dove again, and it returned with an olive leaf, indicating that the waters had receded. After another 7 days, he sent the dove once more, and it did not return. In the 601st year of Noah's life, the waters dried up. God commanded Noah, his family, and the animals to leave the ark and repopulate the earth. Noah built an altar and offered burnt offerings to the Lord God, smelled the pleasing aroma, and said, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, nor will I destroy all living creatures, as I have done, as long as the earth endures seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and air. Night will never cease." God blessed Noah and his sons, commanding them to be fruitful and fill the earth. He gave them all animals for food, but forbade them from eating meat with its blood. He also established a law against murder. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God, as God made mankind, God made a covenant with Noah, his descendants, and all living creatures, promising never again to destroy the earth with a flood. As a sign of this covenant, he set the rainbow in the clouds. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow appears, I will remember my covenant, and the waters will never again become a flood to destroy all life. Noah's sons who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and from them the whole earth was populated. Noah became a farmer, and planted a vineyard. He drank the wine, became drunk, and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness, and told his brothers Shem, and Japheth took a garment, walked backward, and covered their father's nakedness, without looking at him. When Noah awoke and learned what Ham had done, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." He blessed Shem and Japheth. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. Genesis 10 presents the table of nations listing the descendants of Noah's sons. Japheth's descendants mainly populated Europe and Asia Minor. Ham's descendants settled in Africa, Canaan, and parts of Mesopotamia, and Shem's descendants inhabited the Middle East, including the Hebrews. At that time, humanity spoke a single language. Moving eastward, they settled in the plain of Shar, Mesopotamia. They decided to build a city and a tower that reached the heavens to make a name for themselves and avoid being scattered across the earth. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower and said, "Behold, the people are one, and they all have the same language now. Nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language." Thus the Lord confused the language of the whole earth and scattered them over its face. The place was called Babel, confusion. Genesis continues with Shem's genealogy up to Abram. Shem fathered Arad, who fathered Salah, who fathered Abram. Shem fathered Arad, who fathered Abram. Shem fathered Arad. Hebrews possibly originates the lineage to Terah, who fathered Abram. Nahor and Haran. Haran fathered Lot, but died in Ur of the Chaldeans. Terah left Ur with Abram, Sarai, Abram's wife, and Lot, to go to Canaan, but they settled in Haran, where Terah died. After Terah's death, Abram received a divine calling: "Go from your land, your relatives, and your father's house, to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you. Through you all the families of the earth will be blessed. This calling marks the transition from universal history to the history of God's chosen people through whom salvation would come. The threefold promise to Abram involved land, numerous descendants, and universal blessing. Abram departed as the Lord had commanded, taking Lot with him. He was 75 years old when he left Haran with Sarai, his wife Lot, and all their possessions and people they had acquired. Arriving in Canaan, Abram traveled through the land. To Shechem the Lord appeared to him and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." Abram built an altar to the Lord. There then Abram moved to a mountain east of Bethel, where he also built an altar and called on the Lord's name. He continued his journey toward the Negev southern region due to a famine in the land. Abram went down to Egypt, fearing for his life. He asked Sarah to present herself as his sister. Pharaoh's officials saw Sarai, praised her, and she was taken into Pharaoh's house. Because of Sarai, Pharaoh treated Abram well, giving him sheep, cattle, and servants. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his household with plagues. Upon discovering the truth, Pharaoh rebuked Abram and sent him away with all he had. Abram returned to the Negev, then back to Bethel, wealthy in livestock, silver and gold, as Abram and Lot had large flocks. Disputes arose between their herders. Abram proposed separation, allowing Lot to choose first. Lot selected the fertile Jordan Valley, resembling the garden of the Lord, and settled near Sodom. Abram remained in Canaan. The Lord renewed his promise to Abram, "All the land that you see I will give to you and your descendants forever. I will make your offspring as numerous as the dust of the earth." Abram moved his tent to the oaks of Mamre in Hebron and built an altar there. During this time, Shedo, king of Elum, and his allied kings waged war against the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and neighboring cities. After defeating them, they took captives and plundered goods, including Lot. When Abram heard this, he armed 359 trained men born in his household and pursued the kings to Dan, dividing his forces. He attacked at night, recovering Lot, the captives, and all the possessions on his return. Abram was met by Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of God Most High, who brought bread and wine and blessed him. Abram gave him a tithe of everything the king of Sodom offered Abram the goods, but Abram refused, swearing not to take anything for himself later. The Lord appeared to Abram in a vision, saying, "Do not be afraid. I am your shield, and your reward will be very great." Abram questioned, "What will you give me, since I remain childless?" God took him outside and said, "Look at the heavens and count the stars if you can. So shall your descendants be." Abram believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. God made a formal covenant with Abram, promising to give the land to his descendants. Since Sarai was barren, she gave her Egyptian servant Hagar to Abram as a wife. Hagar conceived and began to despise Sarai. When Sarai mistreated her, Hagar fled to the wilderness. The angel of the Lord found her and told her to return and submit to Sarai, promising to multiply her offspring. Hagar gave birth to Ishmael when Abram was 86 years old. At 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless." God changed his name to Abraham, father of many nations, and Sarah's name to Sarah, princess, promising she would bear a son. He established circumcision as the sign of the covenant, and all the males in Abraham's household were circumcised. The Lord later appeared to Abraham near the oaks of Mamre in the form of 3 men. Abraham welcomed them with hospitality, offering water, rest, and food. One of them announced, "I will surely return to you this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah, listening at the tent entrance, laughed to herself due to her old age. The Lord asked, "Is anything too difficult for the Lord?" Before departing, the Lord revealed to Abraham his plan to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah due to the gravity of their sin. Abraham interceded, "Will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you still destroy it?" The Lord agreed to spare the city. For the sake of 50 righteous people, Abraham continued to negotiate, reducing the number down to 10, and the Lord agreed not to destroy the city if he found 10 righteous people. 2 angels arrived in Sodom, where Lot welcomed them into his house. The men of the city surrounded the house, demanding to know the visitors. Lot offered his daughters instead of the guests, but the men attempted to break down the door. The angels struck the men with blindness and instructed Lot to gather his family and leave the city, for the Lord had sent them to destroy it. The next morning the angels urged Lot to hurry. Since he hesitated, They took him by the hand, along with his wife and daughters, and led them out of the city. An angel said, "Flee for your life. Do not look back." The Lord rained down sulfur and fire upon Sodom, and Gomorrah, Lot's wife, looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. Lot and his daughters took refuge in a cave, believing that no men remained on the earth. The daughters made their father drunk, and lay with him. From these acts were born Moab from the father, and Ben-ammi, son of my people, ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites. Abraham moved to Gerar, where he once again said that Sarah was his sister. King Ames took her, but God warned him in a dream. Ames returned Sarah to Abraham and compensated him with gifts. The Lord visited Sarah, and she conceived and bore. Isaac laughed in Abraham's old age. When he was 100 years old, Sarah said, "God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." On the day Isaac was weaned, Sarah saw Ishmael mocking him and asked Abraham to send Hagar and her son away. Abraham was troubled, but God told him, "Listen to Sarah, for through Isaac your offspring will be named, but I will also make a nation of the servant son." Abraham sent Hagar away with a skin of water and bread. When the water ran out, she placed the boy under a bush and moved away weeping. God heard the boy's cries, and an angel called to Hagar, "Do not be afraid, for God has heard the boy's voice. I will make him into a great nation." God opened her eyes, and she saw a fay. Well, Ishmael grew up in the wilderness of Pan and became an archer. Later, God tested Abraham, commanding him, "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to Moriah. Offer him as a burnt offering." Abraham rose early, prepared his new donkey, and took Isaac and 2 servants. On the 3rd day, he saw the place from afar and told the servants, "Wait here. The boy and I will go worship and return." Abraham placed the wood on Isaac and took the fire and the knife. On the way, Isaac asked, "Where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replied, "God will provide the lamb upon reaching the place." Abraham built an altar, arranged the wood, bound Isaac, and placed him on the altar. As he stretched out his hand to sacrifice him, the angel of the Lord called out, "Oh, not lay a hand on the boy, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your only son." Abraham saw a el caught by its horns in a thicket, and offered it in place of Isaac. The angel of the Lord called Abraham again, and said, "I swear by myself that because you have done this, I will bless you, and multiply your descendants like the stars in the sky. Through your offspring all nations of the earth will be blessed, because you obeyed my voice." Sarah died at 27 years old. In Hebron, Abraham purchased the cave of Melah from Ephron the Hittite for 400 shekels of silver to bury his wife. This became the family tomb. Abraham, now old, instructed his senior servant to find a wife for Isaac among his relatives in Haran, not among the Canaanites. The servant swore to do so, and departed with 10 camels and gifts, arriving at a well outside Nahor's city. He prayed, "Lord, let the girl to whom I ask for water, and who offers water to my camels, be the chosen one for Isaac." Before he finished praying, Rebekah arrived, the daughter of Bethuel's son, of Milcah and Nahor, Abraham's brother. The servant asked for water, and she not only gave him water, but also offered to water his camels. Recognizing God's answer, the servant gave her a gold pendant and 2 bracelets, and asked if there was lodging in her father's house. Rebekah led him home and told everything to her brother. The servant explained his mission to Rebekah's family, who acknowledged it as the Lord's will. Rebekah agreed to go, and the servant took her to Isaac. Isaac received her as his wife, loved her, and was comforted after his mother's death. Abraham took another wife, Keturah, who bore him 6 more sons. However, he gave all that he had to Isaac, while he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them away eastward. Abraham died at 75 years old, at a good old age, full of years, and was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Melah. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah. Since she was barren, Isaac prayed to the Lord for her, and she conceived. Feeling a struggle within her womb, she inquired of the Lord, who answered, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples will be separated from within you. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Twins were born. The first red and hairy was named Esau, Harry. The second, who grasped Esau's heel, was named Jacob, supplanter. Esau became a skilled hunter and a man of the field, while Jacob was quiet and lived in tents Isaac loved Esau for his taste for game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. One day as Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field. Exhausted, Esau asked for some of the red stew, and Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." Esau replied, "I'm about to die. What good is my birthright to me?" Jacob made Esau swear, and he sold his birthright for a bowl of lentils. Thus Esau despised his birthright. There was a famine in the land, and Isaac went to Jah. The Lord appeared to him and told him not to go down to Egypt, but to remain in the land, renewing the promises made to Abraham. His father Isaac said that Rebekah was his sister. Fearing that he might be killed when Alis saw Isaac caressing Rebekah, he realized she was his wife and ordered his people not to touch them. Isaac sed in that land and reaped a hundredfold, because the Lord blessed him. He prospered so much that the Philistines envied him. Alis asked him to leave, so Isaac moved to the valley of Gerar, where he reopened the wells of Abraham. There were disputes over several wells, until Isaac dug one that was not contested, naming it Rehoboth, wide spaces. Eventually he went up to Bosbah, where the Lord appeared to him and renewed his promises. Isaac built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord. At the age of 40, Esau took 2 Hittite wives, Judith and Beth, who became a source of grief for Isaac and Rebekah. When Isaac grew old and his eyesight weakened, he called Esau and asked him to hunt and prepare a tasty dish so that he could bless him before he died. Rebekah overheard and instructed Jacob to disguise himself as Esau. She slaughtered 2 young goats, prepared a dish the way Isaac liked, covered Jacob's arms and neck with the skins, and sent him to his father with the food. Jacob presented himself as Esau. Isaac was puzzled by the voice, but when he touched Jacob's arms covered in fur, he was convinced it was Esau. He ate, drank, and blessed Jacob with the dew of heaven, the richness of the earth, dominion over nations, and supremacy over his brothers. As soon as Jacob left, Esau arrived with his hunt. When the deception was discovered, Isaac trembled greatly, but confirmed, "I have blessed him, and he will indeed be blessed." Esau cried out bitterly for blessing. Isaac said, "Your brother, and came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau exclaimed, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me twice already." Isaac then told Esau that he would live by the sword, serve his brother, but one day break free from his yoke. Esau hated Jacob and planned to kill him. After Isaac's death, Rebekah sent Jacob to her brother Laban's house in Haran, until Esau's anger subsided. Thus Jacob fled from his father's house, heading to Haran. On his journey from Beersheba to Haran, Jacob reached a place where he spent the night, using a stone as a pillow. He lay down to sleep. While sleeping, he had an extraordinary dream. He saw a ladder set on the earth with its top reaching the heavens, and the angels of God ascending and descending on it. At the top stood the Lord, who said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, spreading westward, eastward, northward, and southward. Through you and your descendants, all the families of the earth will be blessed. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have fulfilled what I have promised you." Waking from his sleep, Jacob exclaimed, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was unaware of it." Filled with awe, he added, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." The next morning, Jacob took the stone he had used as a pillow, set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on it. He called that place Bethel, meaning house of God. Then there Jacob made a solemn vow, "If God will be with me, watch over me on this journey, provide me with food and clothing, and bring me back safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. This stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and of all that you give me, I will surely give you a tenth." Continuing his journey, Jacob arrived in the land of the eastern peoples. He saw a well in the field where 3 flocks of sheep lay. Resting for the well was used to water the flocks. A large stone covered the mouth of the well, and only when all the flocks gathered did the shepherds roll the stone away, water the sheep, and replace the stone. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" They replied, "We are from Haran." He asked, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They answered, "We do." Jacob continued, "Is he well?" They said, "Yes, and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." When Rachel arrived with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. Jacob approached, rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered Laban's sheep. Then he kissed. Rachel lifted his voice and wept. He told her that he was Rebekah's son, her father's sister's son. Rachel ran to tell Laban, who came running to meet Jacob, embraced him, kissed him, and brought him to his house. After Jacob had stayed with Laban for a month, Laban said to him, "Because you are my relative, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Laban had 2 daughters, Leah the older one, who had delicate eyes, and Rachel the younger, who was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and proposed, "I will serve you for 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." Laban replied, "It is better that I give her to you than to another man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 even years for Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. When the 7 years were completed, Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my time is up, and I want to be with her." Laban gathered all the men of the place and held a feast, but at night he took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. Laban also gave his servant Zilpah to Leah as her maid. In the morning, when Jacob realized it was Leah, he said to Laban, "What have you done to me? Wasn't it for Rachel that I served you? Why have you deceived me?" Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week with this one, and we will also give you the other in return for another 7 years of service." Jacob agreed, completed Leah's bridal week, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. Laban also gave Rachel his servant Bilhah as her maid. Jacob lay with Rachel as well, and he loved her more than Leah, and he served Laban for another 7 years. Seeing that Leah was despised, the Lord opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. Leah conceived, gave birth to a son, and named him Reuben, meaning, "Behold, a son," saying, "The Lord has seen my affliction now. My husband will love me." She conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, "The Lord heard that I was despised, and gave me this one also." And she named him Simeon. Heard she conceived yet again, gave birth to a son, and said, "Now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have given him 3 sons. So she named him Levi, attached. She conceived once more, gave birth to another son, and said, "I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Praise then. She stopped having children, seeing that she bore no children, for Jacob. Rachel envied her sister, and said, "Give me children, or I will die." Jacob became angry with Rachel, and replied, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Rachel said, "Here is my servant Bilhah. Go to her, so that she may give birth on my knees, and through her I too may have children." So Rachel gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob as a wife, and he lay with her. Bilhah conceived and gave birth to a son for Jacob. Then Rachel said, "God has judged me, heard my voice, and given me a son." So she named him Dan. Judge Bilhah, Rachel's servant, conceived again and gave birth to a second son for Jacob. Rachel said, "With mighty struggles I have contended with my sister, and I have prevailed." So she named him Naphtali. My struggles. Seeing that she had stopped bearing children, Leah took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Zilpah, Leah's servant, bore a son for Jacob. Then Leah said, "Good fortune has come." So she named him Gad, fortune, or good luck. Later Zillah, Leah's servant, bore another son for Jacob. Leah said, "How happy I am! The women will call me blessed." So she named him Asher, happy or blessed. During the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandras in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandras." Leah replied, "Is it not enough that you have taken my husband? Will you take my son's mandras too?" Rachel proposed, "Very well. He will sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandras." When Jacob returned from the fields in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must sleep with me tonight, for I have hired you with my son's mandras." So he lay with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son. She said, "God has rewarded me, because I gave my servant to my husband too." She named him Issachar, reward or wages. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. She said, "God has given me a good gift. Now my husband will live with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. Dwelling after that, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, listened to her, and opened her womb. She conceived, gave birth to a son, and said, "God has taken away my disgrace." She named him Joseph. He will add, saying, "May the Lord Add to me another son. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me away so that I may return to my homeland. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go, you know the service I have given you. But Laban said to him, If I have found favor in your eyes, stay with me. I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me because of you. He continued, Set your wages, and I will pay them, Jacob replied. You know how I have served you, and how your livestock has fared with me. What little you had before I came has greatly increased, and the Lord has blessed you because of me. But now when will I provide for my own household? Laban asked, What shall I give you, Jacob? Replied, You shall give me nothing if you will do this one thing for me. I will continue to shepherd and guard your flock. Today I will pass through all your flock, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every speckled and spotted goat. These shall be my wages. My honesty will testify for me. In the future, when you come to check on my wages, if you find in my possession any goat that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark-colored, it will be counted as stolen. Laban agreed. Let it be as you have said. That same day he removed all the streak and spotted male goats, all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one that had white on it, and all the dark-colored lambs, and placed them in the care of his sons. Then he set a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob, however, took fresh-cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white inner wood. He placed the peeled branches in the watering troughs in front of the flocks where they came to drink, and when they drank, they mated the flocks in front of the branches, and the young they bore was streaked, speckled, and spotted. Jacob set the young apart from Laban's flock, and made them face the stray and dark-colored animals in Laban's herd. He kept his own flock separate, and did not mix them with Laban's flock whenever the stronger females were in heat. Jacob placed the branches in the troughs in front of the flocks, so that they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he did not place them there, so the weak ones belonged to Leah, and the pake, strong ones to Jacob. In this way, Jacob grew exceedingly prosperous, and came to own large flocks, female and male servants, camels and donkeys. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned, and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father Jacob. Also noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not as it had been before then. The Lord said to Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers and your Urim kindred, and I will be with you so. Jacob sent for Rachel and Leah to come to the field where his flock was, and he said to them, I see that your father's countenance toward me is not as it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. You yourselves know that I have served your father with all my strength, yet your father has deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times. However, God did not allow him to harm me. If he said, The speckled ones shall be your wages, then all the flock bore speckled ones. And if he said, The striped ones shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped ones. So God has taken away your father's livestock, and given them to me. It happened that at the time when the flock was breeding, I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream that the male goats mating with the flock were striped, speckled, and spotted. Then the angel of God said to me, A dream, lift your eyes, and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are striped, speckled, and spotted, for I have seen all that Laban has done to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar, and made a vow to me. Now arise, leave this land, and return to your native land. Rachel and Leah answered him, Do we still have any share or inheritance in our father's house? Does he not regard us as foreigners? For he has sold us and consumed all our money. All the wealth that God has taken from our father belongs to us and our children. So now do whatever God has told you. Then Jacob arose and say to his sons and his wives on camels. He took all his livestock and all his possessions that he had acquired in Padan Aram to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household idols, teraphim, and Jacob deceived Laban the Araman by not telling him that he was fleeing. So he fled with all that he had, arose, crossed the Euphrates River, and headed toward the hill country of Gilead. On the 3rd day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he took his relatives with him, and pursued him for 7 days, and he caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. But that night God appeared to Laban the Aramean in a dream, and said to him, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. When Laban reached Jacob, Jacob had already pitched his tent in the hill country. and Laban and his relatives camped nearby. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You have deceived me, and carried off my daughters like captives, taken in war. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me? Why did you not tell me, so that I could have sent you away with joy and with songs, with tambourine and harp? You did not even allow me to kiss my grandchildren and my daughters. Goodbye, you have acted foolishly. I have the power to harm you, but last night the God of your father said to me, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.' Now you have gone away because you longed for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?" Jacob answered, "I was afraid, for I thought you might take your daughters from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live in the presence of our relative. See for yourself what is yours among my belongings, and take it now." Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, then into Leah's tent, and then into the tents of the 2 female servants. But he found not. After leaving Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household idols and put them in the saddle of the camel, and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent, but found nothing. She said to her father, "Do not be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence, for I am having my monthly period." So he searched, but did not find the idols. Then Jacob became angry, and rebuked Laban, saying, "What is my transgression? What is my sin, that you have so hotly pursued me? You have searched all my belongings. What have you found of your household's possessions? Set it here before my relatives and yours, and let them judge between the 2 of us. These 20 years I have been with you. Your sheep and goats have never miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself. You demanded payment from me for anything stolen by day or by night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. I have been in your household for 20 years. 14 years I worked for you, in exchange for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flocks. And you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my affliction and the toil of my hands. And last night he rebuked you." Laban answered, "Jacob, the daughters are my daughters. The children are my children, the flocks are my flocks. Everything you see is mine. Yet what can I do today about my daughters, or the children they have borne now? Come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between us." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. Then Jacob said to his relatives, "Gather stones." They took stones and piled them up in a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Lel and called it Jagar Sahadutha, and Jacob called it Gald. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." That is why it was called Gald. It was also called Mizpah, because Laban said, "May the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight, if you mistreat my daughters, or take other wives besides my daughters. Even though no one is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me." Laban also said to Jacob, "Here is this heap, and here is this pillar I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not go past this heap to harm you, and that you will not go past this heap and this pillar to harm me. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice on the mountain, and invited his relatives to eat after they had eaten. They spent the night there. Early the next morning Laban arose, kissed his grandchildren and his daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban departed, and returned home. Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him when Jacob saw them. He said, "This is God's camp." So he named that place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau to the land of Seir, the territory of Edom. He instructed them, saying, "This is what you are to say to my lord Esau. This is what Jacob your servant says. I have stayed with Laban and remained there until now. I have oxen, donkeys, sheep, male and female servants. I'm sending this message to my lord, so that I may find favor in your eyes." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We went to your brother Esau, and he is also coming to meet you with 400 men." Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people with him along with the flocks, herds, and camels into 2 groups. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the other group may escape. Jacob prayed, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, Return to your country and to your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown to your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two groups. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you said, I will surely make you prosper, and make your descendants as numerous as the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. That night Jacob stayed there. From what he had with him, he selected a gift for his brother Esau, 2,000 female goats, and 20 male goats, 2,000, and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He entrusted them to his servants, each her separately, and instructed them, Go ahead of me, and keep some distance between the herds. He told the first servant, When my brother Esau meets you and asks, Whose servant are you? Where are you going? And whose animals are these before you? Then you shall say, They belong to your servant Jacob. It is a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he himself is coming behind us. He gave the same instructions to the second, the third, and all who followed the herds. This is what you are to say to Esau when you meet him, and you shall also say, Your servant Jacob is coming behind us. For he thought, I will pacify him with this gift that goes ahead of me, and afterward, when I see him, perhaps he will accept me. So Jacob's gift went on ahead of him. But he himself spent that night in the camp. That same night he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, along with all his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with him. Then the man said, Let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But Jacob replied, I will not let you go unless you bless me. The man asked him, What is your name? Name Jacob. He answered. Then the man said, Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. Jacob said, Please tell me your name. But he replied, Why do you ask my name then? He blessed him there. Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life was spared. The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with 400 men, so he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 female servants. He placed the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next in, Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob himself went on ahead and bowed to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. And they wept. When Esau looked up and saw the women and children, he asked, Who are these with you? Jacob answered, These are the children whom God has graciously given your servant. Then the female servants and their children came forward and bowed down. Next Leah and her children came and bowed down. Finally Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed down. Esau asked, What do you mean by all these herds I met? Jacob replied, To find favor in the eyes of my lord. But Esau said, I have plenty, my brother, keep what you have for yourself. Jacob insisted, No, if I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from my hand, for seeing your face is like seeing the face of God. Now that you have received me favorably, please accept the gift that was brought to you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need. And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted it. Then Esau said, Let us be on our way, and I will go ahead of you. But Jacob said, My Lord knows that the children are weak, and that I have nursing sheep and cattle with me. If they are driven hard for even one day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord go ahead of his servant. I will proceed slowly, at the pace of the live and the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir. Esau said, Then let me leave some of my men with you. But Jacob replied, Why do that? Just let me find favor in the eyes of my Lord. So that day Esau started back on his way to Succoth, where he built a house for himself and shelters for his livestock. That is why the place was called Sweo. Jacob arrived safely in the city of Shem in the land of Canaan, after coming from Padan Aram, and he camped near the city. He bought the piece of land where he had pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shem. For 100 pieces of silver there he set up an altar, and called it El Israel. At that time Dinah, the daughter Leah, had borne to Jacob went out to visit the daughters of the land. Shem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, took her, lay with her, and humiliated her. But his heart was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman, and spoke tenderly to her. So Shem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this girl as my wife." When Jacob heard that his daughter Dinah had been defiled, his sons were in the fields with his livestock, so he kept silent until they returned. Went to speak with Jacob while his sons were returning from the field. When they heard what had happened, Jacob's sons were indignant and furious, because Shem had committed an outrage in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, something that should never have been done. Hamor spoke to them, "My son, Shem is deeply in love with your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife, intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take ours in return. Dwell among us, the land is before you, settle in it. Trade in it and acquire property." Shem also pleaded, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and I will give whatever you ask. Set the bride price and gift as high as you wish. I will pay whatever you demand, just give me the girl as my wife." Jacob's sons answered Shem and Hamor deceitfully, for Shechem had disgraced their sister Dinah. They said to them, "We cannot give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for that would be a disgrace to us. We will only agree on one condition, that you become like us by circumcising every male among you. Then we will give you our daughters, take yours in return, dwell among you, and become one people. But if you do not listen to us and refuse to be circumcised, we will take our sister." And leave these words pleased Hr and Shem, who wasted no time in complying, for Shem loved Jacob's daughter and was the most respected in his father's household. They went to the city gate and spoke to their fellow townsmen, persuading them to accept the proposal. All the men of the city should be circumcised so that the Israelites could dwell among them, intermarry and share in their wealth. The men agreed and were all circumcised on the third day. When they were in pain, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword, entered the unsuspecting city, and killed every male, including Hamor and Shem. They took Dinah from Shech's house and left. The other sons of Jacob came upon the dead and plundered the city, seizing flocks, cattle, donkeys, everything in the city, and the fields, all their wealth, women and children. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me, making me obnoxious to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are few in number, and if they unite against me, they will attack and destroy me and my household." But they replied, "Should he have treated our sister like a prostitute?" God said to Jacob, "Arise, go up to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." Jacob said to his household, "Get rid of the foreign gods among you, purify yourselves, and change your garments. Let us arise and go to Bethel, where I will build an altar to the God who answered me in my distress and was with me. Wherever I went, they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had, and the earrings from their ears, and he buried them under the oak tree near Shem. As they set out, the terror of God fell upon the surrounding cities, and no one pursued Jacob's sons. They arrived at Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There Jacob built an altar and called the place El Bethel, because God had revealed himself to him there when he fled from his brother during their stay. Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under an oak below Bethel, which was named Alon Baku, oak of weeping. God appeared to Jacob again upon his return from Padan Aram and blessed him. He said, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." And he named him Israel. Then he said, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply a nation. Indeed, a multitude of nations will come from you, and kings will descend from you. The land I gave to Abraham and here Isaac I will give to you and to your descendants." After you leaving Bethel, while still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel went into difficult labor. Amid her pain, the midwife said to Hero, "Not be afraid, for you have another son." But as her life faded away, for she died, she named him Benoni, son of my sorrow, but his father called him Benjamin, son of the right hand. Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. Jacob set up a pillar over her grave, which stands to this day. Israel continued his journey and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eden. While living in that land, Reuben lay with Vha, his father's concubine, and Israel heard of it. Jacob had 12 sons, the sons of Leah: Reuben, the firstborn; Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, the sons of Rachel; Joseph and Benjamin the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant, Dan and Naphtali, the sons of Zilpah, Leah's maidservant, Gad and Asher. These were the sons born to Jacob in Padanaram. Jacob went to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Kirath Alba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had lived as foreigners. Isaac lived to be 18 years old. He breathed his last, died, and was gathered to his people, old and full of years, his sons Esau and Esau. Jacob buried him. Genesis 36 records the generations of Esau, who is Edom, and how he settled in Mount Essie, separating from Jacob, because their possessions were too great for them to dwell together. The chapter details his descendants and the chiefs that came from him. Jacob settled in the land where his father had sojourned in the land of Canaan. Joseph, at the age of 17, was tending the flock with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, and he brought a bad report about them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. His brothers, seeing that their father loved him more than them, hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Joseph had a dream, and told it to his brothers, which made them hate him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves in the field, and suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to mine." His brother said to him, "Will you indeed reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. Joseph had another dream and told it to his brothers. "I had yet another dream, and behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down before me." He also told his father, who rebuked him, "What kind of dream is this? Shall I, your mother, and your brothers indeed come and bow down to the floor ground before you?" His brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind when his brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Israel sent Joseph to check on them. A man found him wandering in the field and told him that his brothers had gone to Dothan. So Joseph went after them and found them there. Seeing him from a distance before he even reached them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes the dreamer. Come, let's kill him and throw him into haste. We'll say a wild beast devoured him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." Reuben, hearing this, tried to rescue him, saying, "Let's not take his life." He added, "Do not shed blood. Throw him into this cist in the wilderness. But do not lay a hand on him." He said this to rescue him and return him to his father. As soon as Joseph reached his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the multicolored robe he was wearing, and threw him into an empty cistern with no water. Then they sat down to eat. Lifting their eyes, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels loaded with spices, balm and myrrh, on their way to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there in killing a brother and covering up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh." His brothers agreed. When the Midianite merchants passed by, they pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and did not find Joseph there, he tore his clothes in despair. He returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and I, where shall I go?" They took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a young goat, and dipped the robe in its blood. They sent the multicolored robe to their father, saying, "We found this. See if it is your son's robe." Jacob recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. A wild animal has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces." He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son. Many days all his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, saying, "I will go down to the grave in mourning for my son." And his father wept for him. Meanwhile the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a prosperous man in the house of his Egyptian master. Seeing that the Lord was with him and made all that he did prosper, Potiphar put Joseph in charge of his household and entrusted him with everything he owned. From that moment the Lord blessed the best the Egyptians' house for Joseph's sake. The Lord blessing was on everything he had, both in the house and in the field. Potiphar left everything he owned in Joseph's hands, not concerning himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was handsome and well built. After some time, Potiphar's wife began to desire Joseph and said, "Lie with me," but he refused, saying, "My master has entrusted me with everything in this house, and does not concern himself with anything. No one is greater in this house than I." and he has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I commit such a great evil and sin against God?" She pursued Joseph day after day. But he refused to listen to her, to lie with her, or even be near her. One day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the household servants were there, she grabbed his garment and said, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hands, fled, and ran outside, seeing that he had left his garment in her hands and had run away. She called the men of the house and said, "Look, this Hebrew man has been brought here to mock us. He came to lie with me, but I screamed loudly when he heard me raise my voice and scream. He left his garment with me and ran outside." She kept Joseph's garment with her until his master came home. Then she told him the same story. "The Hebrew servant you brought to us came to dishonor me, but when I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment with me and ran outside." When Potiphar heard his wife's words, he burned with anger. He took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were confined, and there Joseph remained. But the Lord was with Joseph. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the sight of the prison warden. The warden put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners, and he managed everything that was done there. The warden did not worry about anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him. And Medivh, everything he did prosper. Sometime later, the king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker offended their master Pharaoh. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials and had them put in the custody of the captain of the guard in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he served them. They remained in custody for some time. Both of them had a dream on the same night, each with its own interpretation. In the morning, Joseph saw that they were troubled and asked them, "Why do you look so sad?" "Today," they replied, "we have had a dream, but there is no one to interpret it." Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell me your dreams." The chief cupbearer told his dream. "I dreamed that there was a vine before me. On the vine were 3 branches that budded, blossomed, and produced clusters of ripe grapes. I had Pharaoh's cup in my hand, so I took the grapes, squeezed them into the cup, and placed it in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph interpreted, "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will place Pharaoh's cup in his hand, as you used to when you were his cup-bearer. But remember me when things go well for you. Show kindness to me, and mention me to Pharaoh, so that I may be brought out of this place. For indeed, I was stolen from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to be put in this dungeon." Seeing that the interpretation was favorable, the chief baker also told his dream. "I dreamed that there were 3 baskets of white bread on my head. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." Joseph answered, "This is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head by removing it from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh." On the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, he held a feast for all his servants. He lifted up the head of the chief cup-bearer and the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cup-bearer to his position so that he could once again place the cup in Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief baker just as Joseph had interpreted. However, the chief cup-bearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot about him after 2 full years. Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the river when 7 cows, beautiful and fat, came up from the river and grazed in the field. Then 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up after them and stood beside the first ones on the riverbank. The ugly, thin cows ate up the 7 fat, healthy cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, full and good, were growing on a single stalk after them. 7 thin heads of grain, scorched by the east wind, sprouted up. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 full, healthy heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It was just a dream. In the morning his spirit was troubled. He sent for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cup-bearer spoke to Pharaoh, "Today I remember my faults." Pharaoh was angry with his servants, and he put me and the chief baker in Cody in the house of the captain of the guard. We each had a dream the same night, and each dream had its own interpretation. There was a young Hebrew man there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each of us the meaning of his dream. And just as he interpreted, so it happened. I was restored to my position, and he was hanged. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought out of the dungeon. He shaved changed his clothes, and came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to him, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream you can interpret it. Joseph replied, It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Pharaoh recounted his dreams to Joseph, and Joseph said, Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. The dream is one. The 7 years, the dream is one. The 7 years, and so are the 7 empty heads of grain, scorched by the east wind. They represent 7 years of famine. It is just as I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout all the land of Egypt, but after them 7 years of famine will arise, and all the abundance will be forgotten in Egypt, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered because of the famine that follows it will be very severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and he will do it soon. Therefore Pharaoh should select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. Let them gather all the food from these good years that are coming and store up grain under Pharaoh's authority, keeping it in the cities for food. This food will serve as a reserve for the land during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the land will not perish because of the famine. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, Can we find anyone like this man in whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of me. House and all my people shall submit to your orders. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his side-knit ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. He dressed him in fine linen robes and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in his 2nd chariot, and men called out before him, bow the knee. Thus he was placed over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift a hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zanath-Paneah, and gave him Asenath, daughter of Porer, priest of On, as his wife. So Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. The land produced plentifully. He gathered all the food from the 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city he put the food gathered from the surrounding fields. Joseph stored up grain in great abundance, like the sand of the sea, so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. Before the 1st year of famine came, Joseph had 2 sons born to him by Asenath, daughter of Potieph, priest of On. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, saying, Because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household. The 2nd son he named Ephraim, saying, Because God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. The 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in the entire land of Egypt there was bread. When the whole land of Egypt began to suffer from hunger, the people cried out to Pharaoh for food. Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph, do whatever he tells you. As the famine spread throughout the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians because the famine was severe. In Egypt, people from all lands came to Egypt to buy from Joseph, for the famine had struck every land. The famine that Joseph had foreseen in his interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams extended beyond Egypt's borders, reaching the land of Canaan as well. In the face of scarcity, Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt and said to his sons, Why do you stand around looking at each other? I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die. So 10 of Joseph's brothers set out for Egypt to buy grain. However, Jacob did not allow Benjamin, Joseph's youngest brother, to go with them, fearing that some disaster might befall him. Benjamin was the only remaining son of his beloved Rachel, for Jacob believed Joseph was dead. When the brothers arrived in Egypt, they went directly to Joseph, as he was the governor of the land and in charge of selling grain to everyone as they presented themselves before him. They bowed with their faces to the ground. Joseph immediately recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. More than 20 years had passed. Joseph was now a mature man, dressed as an Egyptian noble, speaking the Egyptian language and looking completely different from the 17-year-old they had sold. Remembering the dreams he had in his youth about his brothers bowing before him, Joseph decided not to reveal himself immediately. He spoke harshly to them through an interpreter. "Where do you come from?" They answered, "From the land of Canaan, to buy food." Joseph accused them. "You are spies. You have come to see the weak points of this land," they protested. "No, my lord. Your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of the same man. We are honest men, not spies." But Joseph insisted. "No, you have come to scout the weak spots of the land." They explained their family situation. "We, your servants, are 12 brothers' sons of the same man in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no longer with us." Joseph responded, "It is just as I said. You are spies, and this is how you will be tested by Pharaoh's life. You will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you to bring your brother while the rest of you remain imprisoned. This will prove whether you are telling the truth. Otherwise, by Pharaoh's life, you are surely spies." And he kept them in custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do this, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain in prison, while the rest of you take grain to relieve your family's hunger. Then bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified, and you will not die." They agreed. The brothers said to one another, not knowing that Joseph understood them, "Surely we are being punished for what we did to our brother. We saw his distress when he pleaded with us, but we did not listen. That is why this trouble has come upon us." Reuben replied, "Did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? But you did not listen. Now we must account for his blood." Joseph, hearing this, turned away from them and wept. When he returned, he took Simeon and had him bound before their eyes. Joseph then ordered that their sacks be filled with grain, that each man's money be secretly returned in his sack, and that they be given provisions for their journey. And so it was done. As they loaded their donkeys with the grain and set off, one of them opened his sack at a resting place to feed his donkey, and saw his money at the top of the sack. He said to his brothers, "My money has been returned. It is here in my sack." Their hearts sank, and trembling they asked one another, "What is this that God has done to us?" When they arrived at their father Jacob's house, they recounted everything that had happened to them, how the governor had spoken harshly to them, accused them of being spies, and demanded that they bring Benjamin as proof of their honesty. As they emptied their sacks, each of them found his bag of money, and they and their father were terrified. Jacob lamented, "You have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, Simeon is imprisoned, and now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is against me." Reuben said, "You may put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Entrust him to me, and I will return him." But Jacob refused. "My son will not go down with you. His brother is dead, and he alone is left to me. If any harm comes to him on the journey, you will bring my gray hairs down to the grave." In sorrow, however, the famine remained severe in the land. When they had eaten all the grain they had brought from Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Go back and buy us a little more food." Judah replied, "The man warned us solemnly, 'You will not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we will go and buy food for you. But if you do not send him, we will not go.' Because the man said, 'You will not see my face unless your brother is with you.' Israel asked, 'Why did you bring this trouble upon me by telling the man you had another brother?' They replied, The man questioned us closely about ourselves, and our family. Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?" We answered his questions truthfully. How could we have known that he would say, 'Bring your brother here?' Then Judah said to Israel, 'Let the boy go with me, so that we may go and survive, rather than die you and our children. I will take full responsibility for him. You may hold me accountable if I do not bring him back. I will bear the blame before you forever.' We had not yet so long we could have gone and returned twice by now. Israel yielded and said, 'If it must be so, then do this: take some of the best products of the land in your bags, and offer them as a gift to that man, a little ball, a little honey, spices, myrrh, pistachios, and almonds. Take double the money with you to return what was placed in the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake also. Take your brother and go back to that man. May God Almighty grant you mercy before him, so that he may release your other brother and Benjamin. As for me, if I must lose my children, then so be it." The men took the gifts, the double amount of money, and Benjamin they traveled down to Egypt and presented themselves before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Take these men to my house, slaughter an animal, and prepare a feast, for they will dine with me at noon." The steward brought them to Joseph's house, and they became afraid. They thought, "It is because of the money that was returned in our sacks the first time that we are being brought here to be accused, attacked, and taken as slaves, along with our donkeys." Approaching the steward, they explained the situation about the money found in their sacks. The steward replied, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks. I received your money." Then he brought Simeon out to them. When Joseph arrived, his brothers presented him with the gifts they had brought and bowed before him. Joseph asked how they were and said, "Is your old father of whom you spoke well? Is he still alive?" They replied, "Your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive." They bowed down in respect. Joseph looked up and saw Benjamin, his own mother's son, and asked, "Is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about then?" He said, "May God be gracious to you, my son," deeply moved at the sight of his brother. Joseph hurried out looking for a place to weep. He went into his room and wept there. After washing his face, he came out, controlling himself, and said, "Serve the meal." They served Joseph separately, his brothers separately, and the Egyptians who ate with him separately, for Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews, as that was detestable to them. The brothers were seated before Joseph in order of age, from the oldest to the youngest, and they looked at one another in astonishment. Joseph sent them portions from his own table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times larger than the others. They drank and feasted with him. Then Joseph ordered the steward of his house, "Fill these men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack. Also place my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the youngest one." Sack along with his grain money. The steward did as Joseph commanded. At dawn the men were sent on their way with their donkeys. They had left the city but had not gone far when Joseph said to his steward, "Go after those men, and when you catch up with them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid good with evil? Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and uses for divination? What you have done is wrong." When the steward caught up with them, he repeated these words. They responded, "Why does my lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. The money we found in the mouths of our sacks we brought back from Canaan. Why then would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found with the cup, he will die, and the rest of us will become my lord's slaves." The steward replied, "Very well, then let it be as you have said. The one who is found with the cup will become my slave. The rest of you will be free." Each of them quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. The steward searched, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. At this they tore their clothes, loaded their donkeys, and returned to the city. Judah and his brothers went to Joseph's house, where he was still present, and threw themselves to the ground before him. Joseph said to them, "What have you done? Do you not know that a man like me can surely divine the truth?" Judah replied, "What can we say to my lord? What can we say to my lord? What can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God has exposed the guilt of your servants. We are now my lord's slaves, we ourselves, and the one who was found with the cup." But Joseph said, "Far be it from me to do such a thing. Only the man who was found with the cup will be my slave. The rest of you go back in peace to your father." Then Judah stepped forward and said, "Please, my lord, let your servant speak a word to you. Do not be angry with your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself." My lord asked his servants, "Do you have a father or a brother?" We answered, "We have an old father and a younger brother, the child of his old age. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him." Then you said to your servants, "Bring him down to me, so that I may see him for myself," we told. "My lord, the boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves, his father will die. But you told your servants, unless your youngest brother comes with you, you will not see my face again." When we returned to your servant our father, we told him what my lord had said. Our father said, "Go back and buy us a little more food." But we replied, "We cannot go down unless our youngest brother goes with us." We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Then your servant, my father, said, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away. And I said, Surely he has been torn to pieces. I have not seen him since. If you take this one too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my grey head down to the grave in cess. Or so now, if I return to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, since his life is bound up with the boy's life. When he sees that the boy is not there, he will die. Your servants will have brought the grey head of our father down to the grave in grief. Moreover, your servant guaranteed the boy's safety to my father, saying, If I do not bring him back, I will bear the blame before my father all my life. Now therefore please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers, for how can I go back to my father? If the young man is not with me, I do not want to see the misery that would come upon my father. Moved by Judah's heartfelt plea, Joseph could no longer restrain himself. He ordered everyone who was with him to leave so that no one else was present. When he revealed himself to his brothers, he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and the news reached Pharaoh's household. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, is my father still alive? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were stunned in his presence. Then Joseph said, Come closer to me. They approached, and he continued, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to preserve lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing or harvesting. God sent me ahead of you to preserve a remnant for you on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler over all Egypt. Joseph then instructed them to return quickly to their father, and tell him that his son Joseph was alive, and was the governor of all Egypt. He urged them to bring their father to Egypt, where they would be disguised. The story stops. They would be in the land of Goan, and be provided for during the remaining 5 years of famine. Behold, your own eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin can see that it is my own mouth speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor I have in Egypt, and everything you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here. Joseph threw his arms around Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin wept as well, embracing him. Then Joseph kissed all his brothers and wept over them. After that, his brothers finally spoke with him, reconciled. The news that Joseph's brothers had arrived quickly spread, and reached Pharaoh's ears, and he was pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, Tell your brothers, load your animals, and return to the land of Canaan. Bring your father and your families, and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat from the abundance of the land. Pharaoh also commanded, Do this, take carts from Egypt for your children and your wives, and bring your father here. Do not worry about your belongings, because the best of all the land of Egypt will be yours. Joseph provided his brothers with carts, as Pharaoh had ordered, and gave them provisions for their journey. He gave each of them new garments, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 sets of clothes. To his father he sent 10 donkeys loaded with the best of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys carrying grain bread and other provisions for the journey. As he sent his brothers off, he instructed them not to quarrel on the way. Upon arriving in Canaan, Jacob's sons told him Joseph is still alive. In fact, he is the governor of all Egypt. Jacob's heart stood still, for he could not believe them. But when they repeated all of Joseph's words, and he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry him, his spirit revived. Then Israel said, Enough, my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. Israel set out with everything he had, and reached Sheba, where he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. That night God spoke to him in a vision, Jacob, Jacob. He answered, Here I am. God said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will surely bring you back again, and Joseph will place his hand on your eyes. This divine message was decisive, assuring Jacob that moving to Egypt was part of God's plan, and that the promises made to him and his ancestors would continue to be fulfilled. Even outside the promised land, leaving Beersheba, the sons of Israel took Jacob, their father, their children, and their wives in the carts Pharaoh had sent. They also brought their livestock and all the possessions they had acquired in Canaan. Thus Jacob entered Egypt, with all his descendants, his sons, grandsons, daughters, and granddaughters. The book of Genesis meticulously lists all the descendants of Jacob who entered Egypt, the sons of Leah, the sons of Leah, the sons of Zilpah, the sons of Rachel, and the sons of Bilhah. In total 70 members of Jacob's household arrived in Egypt, including Joseph and his 2 sons, who were already there. Jacob sent Judah ahead to Joseph to guide them to Gers. When they arrived in the region of San, Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet his father Israel. As soon as he saw him, he threw himself around his father's neck and wept for a long time in his arms. Israel said to Joseph, "Now I can die, since I have seen your face, and know that you are still alive." It was a moment of deep emotion, for 22 years had passed since Joseph was sold as a slave. The son whom Jacob had believed to be dead was not only alive, but held a position of great power and honor. Joseph then instructed his brothers and his father's household, "I will go up and speak to Pharaoh, and say to him, my brothers and my father's household, who were in the land of Canaan, and have come to me, they are shepherds and keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks, their herds, and everything they own. When Pharaoh calls you and asks, 'What is your occupation?' you shall answer, 'Your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth until now, both we and our fathers. This way you may dwell in the land of Go." Joseph selected 5 of his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. When Pharaoh asked them about their occupation, they responded as Joseph had instructed, adding that they had come to Egypt because of the famine in Canaan. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them live in the land of Goan, and if any among them are capable men, put them in charge of my livestock." Joseph also presented his father to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. When Pharaoh asked Jacob how old he was, he replied, "The days of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and difficult have been the days of my life, and they have not reached the years of my ancestors in their days of pilgrimage." Jacob blessed Pharaoh again and withdrew. Joseph settled his father and his brothers, giving them property in the best part of the land, in the region of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. He provided for his father, his brothers, and his father's entire household, supplying them with food according to the number of their dependents. The famine was severe, and there was no bread in all the land. Joseph collected all the money that was in Egypt and Canaan through the sale of grain, and deposited it in Pharaoh's treasury. When the money was gone, all the Egyptians came to Joseph, saying, "Give us bread. Why should we die before your eyes? Our money is gone." Joseph replied, "If your money is gone, bring me your livestock, and I will give you bread in exchange for it." So they brought air animals to Joseph, and he gave them bread in exchange for horses, sheep, cattle, and donkeys, sustaining the people that year. The following year they returned and said to Joseph, "We cannot hide from my lord that our money is gone, and that our livestock now belongs to my lord. We have nothing left before my lord, except our bodies and our land. Why should we perish before your eyes, we and our land alike? Buy us and our land in exchange for bread, and we along with our land will become Pharaoh's servants. Give us seed so that we may live and not die, and so that the land does not become desolate." So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for every Egyptian sold his field because the famine was severe upon them. The land became Pharaoh's property, and Joseph moved the people to the cities from one end of Egypt's territory to the other. However, he did not buy the land of the priests, for they had an allotment from Pharaoh and lived on the sea for portion Pharaoh gave them. Joseph said to the people, "Today I have bought you in your land for Pharaoh. Here is seed for you. Sow the land at harvest time. You shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and the remaining 4 parts shall be yours for seed for the field, for your sustenance, for those in your household, and for feeding your children." They responded, "You have saved our lives. May we find favor in the eyes of my lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants." Joseph established it as a law in Egypt, which remains to this day. 1/5 of the produce belongs to Pharaoh. Only the land of the priests did not become Pharaoh's property. Israel lived in Egypt, in the land of Goan. They acquired property, were fruitful, and multiplied greatly. Jacob lived 17 years in Egypt, reaching the age of 147 years, as the time approached for him to die. Israel called for Joseph and said, If I have found favor in your eyes, place your hand under my thigh, and promise to deal with me in kin. Deanness and faithfulness do not bury me in Egypt. When I rest with my fathers, carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their tomb. Joseph answered, I will do as you have said. But Jacob insisted, swear to me, and Joseph swore to him some time later. Joseph was told, your father is ill. He went to visit him, taking with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was informed that his son Joseph was coming, Israel gathered his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob said to Joseph, the Almighty God appeared to me in Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. He said to me, I will make you fruitful, and multiply you. I will make you a congregation of peoples, and give this land to your descendants as an everlasting possession. Now your 2 sons, who were born to you in Egypt before I came here, are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are, but the children you have after them will be yours. They will be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he asked, who are these? Joseph replied, they are my sons whom God has given me here. Jacob said, bring them to me so that I may bless them. Israel's eyes were weak with age, and he could barely see. Joseph brought his sons near, and Jacob kissed and embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face again, and now God has even allowed me to see your descendants. Joseph took his sons from his father's knees and bowed with his face to the ground. Then he took both Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right, and brought them close to him. But Israel stretched out his right hand and placed it on Ephraim's head, though he was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head. Crossing his hands, even though Manasseh was the firstborn, he blessed Joseph, saying, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked the car, God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has delivered me from all harm, may he bless these boys. May my name and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac be invoked upon them, and may they grow into a great multitude on the earth. When Joseph saw that his father had placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, he was displeased. He took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's, saying, not so. My father, this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused, saying, I know, my son, I know he too will become a people, and he too will be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will become a multitude of nations that day. He blessed them, saying, through you Israel will pronounce blessing, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Israel said to Joseph, behold, I am about to die, but God will be with you, and will bring you back to the land, and of your fathers I give you 1 portion more than your brothers, the one I took from the Amorites. With my sword and my bow. Jacob called his sons together and said, gather around, so that I may tell you what will happen in the days to come. In a prophetic poem he blessed each of his sons for telling the destiny of their tribes. To Reuben, the firstborn, he announced the loss of preeminence for having defiled his father's bed. To Simeon and Levi he rebuked their violence and cruelty, declaring that they would be scattered in Israel. For Judah he reserved a special blessing, foreseeing that the scepter and the staff of command would remain with him. He said that Zebulun would dwell by the seashore. Issachar would be strong but would submit to forced labor. Dan would judge his people. Gad would be attacked but would counterattack. Asher would enjoy rich food. Naphtali would be like a free deer speaking beautiful words. And Joseph would be fruitful and extraordinarily blessed. Regarding Benjamin he prophesied that he would be like a ravenous wolf, devouring the prey in the morning and dividing the spoils in the evening. Among all the blessings, Judah stood out for its messianic significance. Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down before you. Judah is a young lion from the prey. My son, you have gone up. He crouches, he lies down like a lion and like a lioness. Who will rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. This prophecy foretold that the royal lineage would come from Judah, and that from it would arise a ruler, to whom the nations would submit. A clear reference to the future Messiah. Indeed, centuries later, King David would come from the tribe of Judah, and Jesus Christ would be born from this very royal lineage after blessing each of his sons. With the appropriate blessing, Jacob his sons, with the appropriate blessing, Jacob instructed them, I am about to be gathered to my people, bury me with my fathers, in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Melah near Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite as a burial property there. Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried there. Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried, and there I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were purchased from the sons of Heth. When Jacob had finished giving these instructions to his sons, he drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Joseph threw himself upon his father's face, wept over him, and kissed him. He then ordered the physicians in his service to embalm his father, and they embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for this, for that is the time needed for embalming. The Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. After the days of mourning had passed, Joseph said to Pharaoh's household, If I have found favor in your eyes, please speak to Pharaoh on my behalf. My father made me swear an oath. I am about to die, but bury me in my tomb that I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. Now please allow me to go up and bury my father, and then I will return. Pharaoh responded, Go up and bury your father as he made you swear. So Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went all of Pharaoh's officials, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, as well as all of Joseph's household, his brothers and his father's household, his brothers' household, and their little ones. Their flock and their herds were left in the land of Go, and chariots and horsemen also went up with him, forming a very large procession. When they reached the threshing floor of Atad, beyond the Jordan, they held a great and solemn mourning ceremony. Joseph observed 7 days of mourning for his father. When the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a solemn mourn for the Egyptian. That is why the place was named Abel Misraim, which is beyond the Jordan. Jacob's sons did as he had commanded them. They carried him to the land of Canaan, and buried him in the cave in the field of Melah, which Abraham had purchased from Ephron the Hittite, as a burial site near Mamre. After burying their father, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him? So they sent word to Joseph, saying, Before he died, Your father gave this command, Tell Joseph, please forgive the transgression of your brothers in their sin, because they did you wrong now. Please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God, your father. When their message came to him, Joseph wept. His brothers then came and threw themselves before him, saying, We are your servants. But Joseph said to them, Not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he comforted them, and spoke kindly to them, Joseph remained in Egypt with his father's household, and he lived 110 years. He saw the children of Ephraim. To the 3rd generation also the children of Micaiah, son of Manasseh, were born on Joseph's knees, sensing his approaching death. Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely visit you and bring you up from this land to the land he promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Joseph made the Israelites swear an oath, saying, God will surely visit you, and you must carry my bones up from this place. Joseph died. At the age of 110 they embed him and placed him in a coffin in Egypt. Thus the cycle of the patriarchs came to an end, with God's promise of return to the promised land remaining alive in the hearts of Israel's people, even during their long stay in Egypt. Joseph's request for his bones to be taken to Canaan would be fulfilled centuries later, when Moses carried Joseph's bones during the Exodus 18:19, and Joshua finally buried them in Shem in the land Jacob had given to Joseph. Joshua 244:2. In this way, divine providence orchestrated events to fulfill his promises, transforming the tragedy of Joseph's sale into an instrument of salvation for his chosen people, preparing the stage for the next chapters in Israel's history. Their growth in Egypt, enslavement, the Exodus, and the conquest of the promised land. We have now reached the end of the book of Genesis, this incredible journey that took us from the creation of the world to the establishment of Jacob's family in Egypt. We have seen how God worked through imperfect people, fulfilling his promises and revealing his plan of redemption across generations from Adam to Joseph, we have witnessed God's faithfulness even in the most difficult moments, but the story does not end here. It is only the beginning of the great biblical narrative that continues in the book of Exodus. If you enjoyed this content and want to follow the next biblical stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Share this video with friends and family who may also benefit from these rich stories of faith and divine providence. Thank you so much for watching. May the lessons of Genesis remain in your heart, and may we continue together on this journey through the scriptures.